So we have made 4 diamonds, and this is how it looks so far. Notice I have stitch markers. These markers are 10 rows in on each side. 10 rows each one. This will help us do this last set of diamonds. Now we're going to take this, and as you can see, this is done and then done, but these are straight. We're going to go ahead and give it a twist, just so it looks a little bit nicer when we're done. So I also put stitch markers on where I started these diamonds on the bottom. As you can see, this is a start, this is a start, and this is a start. This is where this diamond started, and this is where this diamond started. So I want to make sure that these are all pointed up. So I've got my 20 stitches in and a stitch marker on each one. So we're decreasing. Remember what we do, we chain 2. There's 1 chain. We're going to go into the row that we are doing now, which is where this stitch marker is. And that is our chain 2. So we're going to flip it and work this way. Now notice this is actually quite important, especially when you're working with the white. Notice how I have my loop in the back and my yarn in the front. Try to always do that. You know, even if you have to pull out and move things around, get that yarn in the front of your loop. So we're decreasing, so this first row we skip, that's the bottom of our chain 3 or chain 2, since we're decreasing, and we go into the next one. We're going to crochet, double crochet all the way across. And this is going to be a little bit longer video because we're gonna stay on task and just do this all. So you might get bored, and you can fast forward if you like. Now I want to talk a little bit about these stitch markers that I use. You really should have these. If you don't, get some. You can pick them up pretty much anywhere. The best ones I found in a store came from Joann Fabrics. They're very similar to what I am using right now. They're very bendable, they don't break, they'll probably outlive me. But since I'm a little bit more frugal, I go onto eBay and I can get a bag of 100 of these things for just a little bit over $5, shipping included. I do recommend you do that. That's what I use. I'm very happy with them. Never had one break. If they're got any sharp edges on them, I just use a fingernail file and I just file that sharp edge down so it doesn't snag on the yarn. And I end up with a really, really good product. So we stitched all the way across. Of course, we have our chain 3 here from when we were doing our increases and then our post. So we have to tie this post and this chain 3 together. So we go into the post, and then we're going to go and do a double crochet into that chain 3, fight with it a little bit, get 2 loops on there. So these are tied together, but let's remember what we're doing. Make sure that that's lined up. Flip it over. And attach it to that top one at that point, all the way through. Decreasing, chain 1, go into this next row, chain 2. We're going to turn. Notice my yarn's in front of my loop. If I were to turn the other direction, like this, you'd see my yarn's behind my loop. So then you just pull your hook out and change it. Easy peasy. So we're decreasing. This first set is actually the bottom of your chain. We skip this and go into this next one, double crochet across, and you don't have to do this on a table. I never do this type of work on a table. I sit in my recliner and relax, watch TV. Sometimes I'll even listen to music on a rare occasion. But this does not have to be something you work on a table with. As long as you use those stitch markers, you know where you're at, and you can sit and relax to do this. It's always good to count when you're done with a row, because even I occasionally get lazy and don't, and then I'm off by a stitch or two. So let's do a count. So this is our first stitch right here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. This will be 15. And these two will tie together to make 16. So as long as I'm getting an even number, I know I'm probably on track. If I get an odd number, then I know I made a mistake, and I gotta pull out until I find it. And we're gonna tie these two together. So I have 3 hooks on there, and then I'm gonna go up, and I know this is harder, but you just twist it a little bit. Go up to that next row, put your hook in, grab that yarn. Oh, I'm sorry. And pull it through. And then it's attached. So let's chain 2. There's 1. And the next chain will go into our next row. So there's your second chain, and let's turn it. Make sure that yarn is running in front of our loop. Skip that first one. It looks like 3 points of yarn. Skip it, go into the next one because we're decreasing. We're going to tie those two together. And I have 2 left. You can see the 2 stitches on top. 1, 2. Let's tie them together. So we decrease by 1 on each side. And we'll attach it to the next row. Chain 1, chain 2 up in the next row. And we're going to turn it. Now, it's easy enough for me to work this way, but I know it's harder for you to see, so I'm just going to show you. We'll just do a flippy here, and we'll just pull this through and work this way. Put my hook in, make sure my thread's in the front. Skip this first stitch, go into the next one, and just continue going. So we're down to 2 stitches again. Let's tie those together. And attach it to that next row. Chain 1, chain 2 in the next row up. And we're ready to move on. We're going to do a flippy again. I don't normally do this, like I said. I'll just work from where I'm at. I just want you to be able to see that yarn in the front. Skip that first stitch, on to the next one. Down to 2 left, tie them together. And that should be a total of 10 stitches at this point, and that's what we're on. So let's go ahead and attach that last one on here. Chain 1, chain 2 in the next row, and let's turn. So I'm going to just bend this over and work this way. This is how I normally do it. So we'll skip this first stitch here and go into the next one. And we're going to tie these two together and decrease by another one on the side. And we'll go up to this next row. See, here was our last row. We'll go up to the next row and attach it. Chain 1, go up to the next row. There's your 2 chains. Always chain 2 when we decrease. Skip these for that one. We're getting to the end where it gets a little bit more complicated, and I want you to see that process, how that comes together in the middle. Down to 2 again. There's the first one. Here's the second one. Go up to that next row and attach it in there. Okay, so things are going to get harder to see. I'll go slower. Chain 1, go up to this next row, put your hook in there. There's your chain 2. As you can see, we're getting to quite a small triangle there. So I'm going to work from the other side just so you can see a little bit better, which means I got to pull this through the middle. I always want that in the front. So this first one we skip, which has got those, that where it looks like a little part of a star where 3 are pointing into 1. We skip that one, go on to the next one. That'll be our first one. This is our second one. Here's our third one. And we should have 2 more left, which we're going to tie together for 4. That might have sounded complicating, more complicating than it should have. And that's going to go, as you can see, into this next row. Grab that yarn, pull it through. Chain 1, chain 2, because we are still decreasing. So our triangle is getting smaller. We're going to, like, this is not how I normally do it, but I just want you to be able to see. Flip it over. Find my little loop. Make sure it's in the back of my yarn. We don't have much left. We have this first one that we skip. We have one here, and then 2 that we're going to tie together. I hope everybody can see that with this yarn. So we'll skip this one, go into this one. That is 1. And these next 2 we'll tie together. And we don't have much left. This is our next row. It's getting pretty tight. As you can see, go in, grab that yarn, pull it through and chain 1, and then we're way at the top of our star here. There's 1 row left. So we chained 1 and we're going to chain 2 into that row. Now, this is it. This is our last row. There's very little to see. So I'm going to have you take a quick peek. So this is that one that we skip right here, and this is our last one that's left. So we're going to tie that chain of 2 to this last one. So I'm going to work from this side. There it is, and that was the other one. So there's just the one, because we're tying it to the chain, and this is, of course, the last post, or the last row up here. So go in. This is impossible for you to see. Let's do it this way. We'll work from the inside. We'll flip it over and work from this side. Okay. All right. This yarn, ignore that. So here we are again. Here's the one we skip, and here's the one we're tying that chain 2 to. Pull it through once, and then attach it to the last row. Same way we've been attaching them. Just pull it through. Okay, now let's try to get back on task, and we're going to have to flip this thing around again. Hope that was easy enough to understand, but I'm guessing it was probably more difficult than I think. So this is how it is. This is our last little row. So like we always do before we start another triangle, we chain 2. So we're ready to start doing this triangle, or this diamond shape. I'm sorry. So when we start, remember we always start with a chain 4. So there's 1, 2, but we have to attach it. And this is 2, 3, 4. I'm going to attach it on this side. So I chained 2, and then I chained 2 of my 4. So there's 2. Here's 3. And there's 4. So I have total of the 2 chains to separate my two diamonds, and then a chain 4. 1, 2, attached would be 3, and there's 4. Turn it around. And remember, we always go into the bottom of the 4, which is this one right here. Grab 2 loops anywhere, doesn't have to be in any particular order, but get 2 of them. Pull through, and only pull through once, because we're going to also have to attach that bad boy to this side. So we're attached on both sides at this point, so we're increasing, so those are chain 3s. Chain 1, do an attached, that's the 2, and here's your 3rd one. So now we're going to go just do some straight, old-fashioned way we've been doing it, but we're going to do it on both sides. Now here's that one with the 3 that we were skipping before, but since we're increasing that first chain, or that first stitch, we're going to put one in, because we're going to increase it, not decrease it. And this, remember, is actually something we stitch into. It's part of that chain 3, because there was the chain 1, here's your chain 2, and here's the chain 3. So that's the top of that chain 3 we get to stitch into to do an increase. That's usually pretty tough to get both them loops, but you know, use your fingernails. Go through the front of it and grab them both. Bear with me, I'll get it. I think I'm there. And there's one, and we're going to put the other one right in the same hole. But we're going to have to stop there and attach it into this next row. You getting a clear picture for me, Clay? So there's your chain 1, chain 2, chain 3. Flip it around, make sure that this is in front of my loop. And this thing that we were skipping on the decrease, we don't skip it anymore because we're increasing. There's that stitch right there. That's the top of the chain 3. Put one in. Here's our second one to increase. So we want to attach that last one to this next row. Chain 1, chain 2, chain 3, and we're ready to start another row. Now when you count these, and I know this is impossible to see, you can see a really well defined double crochet here. But this was the chain 3, that actually counts as a stitch. So 2, 4, here's 5, and here's 6. You always want to make sure it's at least an even number. If it's odd, you missed something along the way. Let's do just a couple more rows, and then I think you'll be okay to finish off the end of your star. And there's that top of that chain 3. I always when you look at the stitch, I always grab this front loop and this loop here. Gives it a, you can't really tell when you're working in one color, but when you start adding the white, you do notice this. So it's a good habit to get into doing on all of them. And then attach it. Increasing, so it's a chain 1, here's your chain 2, here's your chain 3, and we will turn. And I'm just going to stop there because I think you can, and I always like to do this. It's not a real knot, but it keeps it from unraveling. And this will let you to finish, and once you hit these 2 marks, when you attach, you should have 20 stitches in there. And then you start doing your decrease. You know how to do a decrease. Everything will be good. And this is actually a perfect star. Now, before I say I'm done, I like to pick a side, a top side and a bottom side. And that's for the plain and simple fact when we start working on our putting things together. So I'm going to stop right now, and we're going to have another very short video when we look at the actual quilt and how to put everything together. See you in the next video.